Welcome back to Investing Talk Podcast.
Today we're looking at GLD, the SPDR Gold Shares ETF. And honestly, we have to talk about it
We really.
because gold has just done something. I mean, historians are going to be writing about this for a long, long time. As of January 2026, the price per ounce hasn't just broken a record.
Yeah.
It has absolutely shattered the ceiling, breaking through $4,600.
As usual, before we start, subscribe and like and comment to this video to support the show. It helps us keep the lights on and the servers running while we track these trillion-dollar moves.
And it's hitting all-time highs.
Yeah.
So the big question we need to answer today is, well, it's simple, but it's also absolutely terrifying.
Right.
Is this a bubble that's about to pop, or are we looking at the start of a massive super cycle?
That is the multi-billion-dollar question. And look, to set the stage here, we are not talking about some obscure mining penny stock.
Not at all.
GLD is the largest gold-backed ETF on the planet, but I have to play the skeptic right out of the gate. When I see a chart going vertical like this, when I see prices at $4,600, my instinct is to, run the other way.
Of course.
Are we just chasing momentum at this point? Is there any fundamental value left, or are we buying the absolute top?
It's the only question that matters. I mean, nobody wants to be the bag holder at the top. But to figure out if this is a top or a breakout, we can't just stare at the price tag.
Right.
We have to look at the plumbing. We need to look at the fundamentals.
Okay. And this is tricky, right? Because usually when we analyze a stock, we're looking at PE ratios, revenue growth, profit margins.
Yeah.
But GLD, it's a rock. It doesn't have earnings. It doesn't sell software. So how do you even value the fundamentals here?
Exactly. You have to shift your mindset entirely. GLD is not a company. It's a vehicle. So we don't look at revenue. We look at assets under management, or AUM.
AUM.
This is the metric that tells us the scale of investor demand. And the numbers they're just staggering. Yeah. By the third quarter of 2025, GLD's AUM surged to $472 billion.
Wait, pause there. 472 billion is a huge number, sure. But is that smart money sticking around, or is it just hot money chasing the rally?
That's a great question.
Because historically, when retail investors fled into an ETF, that's usually the top signal.
It is, and that's the crucial distinction. This surge isn't just price appreciation. It reflects robust inflows of sticky capital. It tells us that institutional capital, big capital, is flooding into this asset as a permanent hedge.
Okay.
But the product itself is what's really key here. GLD is physically backed.
Okay. Unpack that. Physically backed. Does that mean if I buy a share, I can go to a vault in London and demand my little gold bar?
Well, not you personally, no. Not unless you're an authorized participant dealing in these massive blocks of shares.
Right.
But the structure itself matters. The ETF actually holds physical gold bullion in secure vaults, mostly in London, to back the shares.
But why does that distinction matter to the average listener, though? Why not just buy a futures contract?
Because of counterparty risk. It's a huge deal. If you're buying futures or some synthetic derivative, you're just relying on another party to fulfill a contract.
You're holding paper.
You're holding a piece of paper. If the system breaks, that paper could be worthless. With GLD, the asset is the metal itself. It eliminates that counterparty risk.
I see.
In a world where people are worried about financial stability, that kind of transparency is worth a premium.
Okay, fair enough. It's the doomsday insurance policy. But let's talk about the cost of that insurance. GLD is the big boy on the block, but it's not exactly the cheapest option, is it?
No, it is not. And that is a really crucial nuance for our listeners. GLD is the liquidity king. It's where the big traders go because they can move billions without moving the price.
Right.
But if you're a buy and hold investor, you should really be looking at its sibling, the SPDR Gold Mini Shares, or GLDM.
GLDM, okay.
The expense ratio there is just 0.10%.
That is a huge difference over 10 or 20 years. So GLD is for traders and institutions, and GLDM is for the retirement account.
Precisely. Think of GLD like a massive highway. It has tolls, those higher fees, but you can drive a semi-truck carrying billions of dollars through it at 100 miles an hour without slowing down traffic.
Got it.
GLDM is like a scenic back road. It's cheaper to drive on, perfect for a long, slow trip to retirement.
But you can't race a semi-truck down it.
You can't. You'd crash the price.
That makes perfect sense. But why does the highway matter so much?
Because of the moat.
A moat on a commodity.
A liquidity moat. It creates a network effect. Because everyone trades GLD, the bid-ask spreads are incredibly tight. That makes it cheaper to enter and exit large positions. And this leads to the most important fundamental shift we saw in 2025. Institutional behavior.
Okay, what happened?
We saw European institutional investors start allocating capital to gold at levels we usually only see for, like, sovereign bonds.
Wait, they're treating it like bonds. Are they actually replacing government debt with gold?
Yes, they're viewing it as a Tier 1 safety asset.
Mm.
GLD has become the default vehicle for that capital. And once those big money managers switch their systems and their compliance over to use GLD,
They don't switch out easily.
it's a high switching cost. It locks in that $400 billion baseline.
Okay, the vaults are full, the institutions are treating it like a bond replacement, but let's pivot to the charts. The fundamentals are the engine, but the technicals are the roadmap. What is the price action actually telling us?
It is telling us that the bulls are in complete and total control.
I'm looking at this chart, and control seems like an understatement. We hit a new all-time high. Gold pierced $4,600 an ounce in mid-January 2026. It just looks vertical.
And look at the structure of that move. It's a classic breakout. We had resistance previously around, what, $397 in the ETF price?
Right.
We smashed right through that. Now we're seeing a higher high, higher low pattern, a classic uptrend.
I did notice that dip right at the start of the year. It looked like a little wobble. Was that a crack in the armor?
It was a test, a very important one. We saw some profit taking at year-end, which is totally normal. But look at the rebound.
It was fast.
By January 2nd, 2026, prices snapped back up near $4,370 almost immediately. That resilience tells you that there are buyers lurking aggressively underneath the market.
So they're buying every single dip.
Every single dip.
So if I'm looking for a floor, where is it? Because buying at the very top feels like walking a tightrope without a net.
Well, based on the charts, we have some steady support identified around $372 on the ETF.
Okay, 372.
That's your line in the sand. The previous resistance at 397 should now act as a new floor, but 372 is the major structural support where buyers stepped in last time.
Okay, support levels are good to know. But here is where it gets really interesting for me. It's not just about the lines on the chart. It's about who is drawing them. We are seeing some serious whale activity
The
here.
cluster buying. This is one of the strongest signals you can possibly get.
We're talking about the titans of the industry. Ken Griffin at Citadel Advisors, Israel Englander, Paul Tudor Jones.
These are not retail traders on Reddit.
No, these are the guys who move the market.
And look at how they are buying. This is key. Ken Griffin didn't just buy the shares and sit on them. The data shows he took substantial call option positions.
Okay, for those who don't trade options, explain that. Why is buying a call option so different than just buying the stock?
Think of a call option like putting a down payment on a house you intend to flip next week. You're controlling a massive amount of gold with just a small amount of cash.
It's leverage.
It's pure leverage. Ken Griffin isn't just buying gold to store it. He's renting the upside because he thinks it's going to explode now. Buying shares is a vote of confidence. Buying call options is a bet on immediate, explosive upside.
So he's betting on speed.
Exactly. And it's not just him. We are seeing unusually high options volume across the board and renewed physical demand coming out of Asia. It feels like the smart money is positioning for something big. The charts look strong, but let's check the temperature of the room. Moving on to sentiment.
Right. Usually when the price is this high, sentiment is frothy. Is everyone just too excited here?
Surprisingly, the data says yes, but maybe it's justified. We ran a weighted sentiment analysis on the news flow. The score came back at plus 0.35. That is firmly bullish.
Okay. What kind of headlines are driving that?
Well, out of 8 major recent headlines, 6 were bullish. You've got things like gold breaks $4,600 record and GLD jumps on Powell probe. The media narrative is overwhelmingly positive.
And it's not just journalists. The big banks, they're scrambling to upgrade their targets. They're really chasing the price, aren't they?
Oh, they are. Yeah. JP Morgan Global Research just dropped a bombshell forecast.
All right.
They see the potential for gold to reach $5,000 an ounce by late 2026.
5,000.
And they said the long-term ceiling could be over 6,000.
$6,000. That is a massive move from here. And they aren't alone. Morgan Stanley raised their 2026 target to 4,400. UBS is targeting 5,000.
Yep.
But why? That's the part I need to understand. Why is JP Morgan betting on $6,000 gold?
It all comes down to the macro narrative, the why. And the biggest driver is central banks. In 2025, central banks accumulated gold at a record pace, 585 tons per quarter.
Okay, numbers again. 585 tons, put that in perspective. Is that a lot?
It's an insane amount.
Yeah.
To give you a sense of scale, global gold mining output is roughly 800 to 900 tons a quarter.
Okay.
If central banks are buying 585 tons, they're effectively swallowing nearly 70% of all the new gold coming out of the ground.
Wow.
They are rigging the supply curve before the metal even hits the open market.
That is actually insane. They're cornering the market.
And it's mostly emerging markets.
Yeah.
This is the de-dollarization story.
Right.
This isn't just a trade for them. It's a strategic shift in their reserve assets. They are diversifying away from the U.S. dollar.
And that's a buyer who doesn't care about the price.
Exactly. When you have a buyer that large who isn't price sensitive, it puts a permanent floor under the market.
So it's not just about making money, it's about not losing it when the world goes crazy.
Precisely. And then you have portfolio theory. Northern Trust released research showing that in 2025, a standard 60-40 stock bond portfolio that included gold saw its drawdowns reduced by up to 30% during the market turbulence.
Okay, it sounds perfect. The vaults are secure, the billionaires are buying calls, central banks are buying 70% of the supply, and the charts are vertical, which makes me incredibly nervous.
Let's look at the downsides. What breaks this thesis? Because nothing goes up in a straight line forever.
You're right to be nervous. There are real risks here. And the biggest one, it's the dollar and the Fed.
The old nemesis. The thesis killer here is unexpected U.S. economic resilience. If the U.S. economy stays too hot, or if the Fed, delays rate cuts, the dollar strengthens.
And since gold is priced in dollars, a strong dollar usually pushes gold down.
Plus, you have the yield issue. Gold pays you nothing. Zero dividends. Zero interest.
Right.
So here's the math problem for gold. If I can put my money in a government bond and get 5% and inflation's only 2%, I'm making a real 3% profit.
Why would I hold a gold bar that pays me nothing?
Exactly. That's the real yield trap. If bonds pay well, gold looks like a pet rock.
Yeah.
If the market sniffs out a delay in rate cuts, gold could sell off hard.
That's a macro risk. What about a practical one? You mentioned prices hitting 4,600. At some point, wouldn't it just get too expensive for people to buy?
That is risk number 2, demand destruction. We have to remember gold isn't just a financial asset, it's also jewelry.
Ah, right.
The jewelry sector accounts for 40% of global gold consumption.
40%. That is huge.
It is. And at $4,600 plus, the consumer in India or China might just stop buying. If you hollow out 40% of the physical market because the price is too high, you lose a massive layer of support.
So the central banks might be buying, but the jewelry stores could be empty. That's a dangerous divergence.
And then there's the technical risk. We are, simply put, overbought. When you have a vertical move like this, it's natural to see a pullback. We're stretched. A correction is not just possible, it's probable.
And I noticed one speculative element in the notes, the Powell probe. We have to touch on this wildcard headline.
We do. We don't have all the details yet, but the market hates uncertainty at the Federal Reserve. Gold creates a premium when leadership is shaky.
But this is a binary risk.
Completely. If this investigation just vanishes next week, if it turns out to be a nothing burger, that fear premium vanishes with it. You could see gold drop $200 overnight just on the news cycle clearing up.
Okay, so we've weighed the vault security against the dollar risk. We've looked at the whales versus the jewelry buyers. It's time for the final verdict. Give it to me straight. Where do we land on GLD?
We've crunched the numbers, and the bullish score comes in at an 8.5 out of 10.
8.5, that is very high confidence.
It is high, and here's the rationale. The positives, I think, simply outweigh the negatives. You have structural demand from central banks buying most of the new supply. That is not going away.
Right.
You have the smart money Griffin Jones cluster buying with leverage. And you have JP Morgan pointing to $6,000.
But not a 10 out of 10.
No, because of the overbought technicals and that risk of jewelry demand collapsing, we have to respect the price level.
So how do we play this? What is the investment thesis for the listener?
The time frame here is a 6 to 12-month hold. This is a medium-term play, and we're suggesting an allocation of roughly 5 to 8% of the portfolio.
Okay.
You don't go all in, but you make it a significant slice.
And for entry, do we buy right here at the all-time high?
That depends on who you are. If you're an aggressive investor, you accumulate. If we see a pullback toward that $372 support level, you buy the dip aggressively.
And for the conservative listeners?
I'd say wait. We are overbought. Wait for a 3 to 5% correction from these highs. Let the steam blow off a little bit, then enter. You don't need to chase the exact top.
And the closing thought.
In a world of policy uncertainty, de-dollarization, and potential inflation, GLD remains the Tier 1 asset. It offers both safety and growth. It's really the only asset that is nobody else's liability.
A Tier 1 asset for a Tier 1 audience. That is the verdict. An 8.5 out of 10 for GLD.
Absolutely. The golden standard is still the standard.
All right, that wraps up our deep look into the shiny stuff. If you agree with JP Morgan's $5,000 price target, or if you think they are crazy, drop a comment below. We want to hear your take. Do you own it, or are you too scared of the highs? Let us know. As always, thank you for listening. Subscribe, like, and we will catch you on the next one.
Happy investing.